Welcome everyone. As we have discussed about controlling and techniques to control the things, that is, we try to manage all the things which are already existing according to the standards which we have decided. So we try to execute the plans and we decide the standards. But when we look forward for the world, when we look forward for the business world, industries, there are different changes which are occurring with rapid into it, and when we try to cope up with that, we must come up with acceptance for new things, and there need to have a flexibility in our processes through which we can sustain, we can survive, as well as we can compete. So for that particular purpose, we must require certain changes to bring in our organization, and when we bring changes, these changes need to be implemented in each dimension of our practices. Thus, after controlling the things which come into existence, that how we can match the current scenario of world, and then we can bring new changes and make it as a part of organization's day-to-day practice. So all these things comes under the dimension called change management. So it can be said that the methods and manners in which a company describes and implements changes within both its internal and external process. So when we look forward for the internal process, when we are going for any manufacturing industry in case, then we can identify these changes which are occurring within the organization with respect to our manufacturing process. That will be the internal, and how we process with the external world, with the customers, with other businesses, and all these things will be part of external processes. So according to the changes which are required to be implemented, an organization must bring all these changes using certain methods, and these methods are called your change management. Now, when we look forward for this particular aspect, let's just take an example that as a present scenario, all the manufacturing units or all the service providing companies are facilitating all the services over the online, as if to have a physical appearance or physical presence in the market is not giving work at the time of pandemic or corona. So mostly their presence needs to be available with the customers, and this is feasible with the usage of our online practices. So this is a kind of change which an organization has to bring in its practices, which may change or which may differ its practices in internal as well as external dimensions. Now, when we look forward for changes, how these changes being brought in the organization, what are the forces which are available to bring these changes? So these can be divided into two dimensions. One is going to be the internal forces, and second going to be the external forces. So let's talk about the external force. As we were just discussing about the pandemic situation, it was a kind of external force which has given a pressure over different organizations to bring changes in its practices so that they are coming up with all the outcomes as well as not hampering the health of its employees and the things which are prevailing. They need to have a precautionary actions. Now for this, we can simply identify the work from home, which is a new evolved kind of methodology used by different organizations wherever the things are possible. So in that case, the individual employees are working from their home while they were performing the similar things. They had to visit the premises of organization. So physical presence is not necessary at that particular point of time where social distancing and different norms has to be adhered by different organizations. So work from home is a new term being involved. Now this is due to the external pressure existing within with the organizations. The another dimension which is available, that is the internal forces. Now internal forces may be the technical deficiency, maybe technical efficiency. There may be the resource-related competency, resource-related incompetency. So all these can be the dimension. There may be the processes-related, we can say lacuna, and we need to change it according to the new technology. So all these can be the internal forces which may force individual, which may pressurize individual, the organization to bring changes and make it implemented so that it can survive, it can benefit it, and it can go for competitive advantage in the industry. So this is how the forces are pressurizing organizations to bring changes. Now, moving ahead in this direction, we come across with different type of changes within the organization. So these are the different changes available. The first which is available, that is an adaptive change. That is, this involves re-implementation of change in the same organizational unit. Adaptive change is not considered threatening. Now, adaptive change as in itself says that we need to adapt ourselves for certain things. Now, it's not a change which is bringing overall functional changes, operations within the organization, but it is to be adaptive to different kind of situations. The practices can be rolled out, the current practices can be rolled out as per the scenario which is available. So now the one unit which is adapting to the different, or we can say main office related policies being adapted by one unit, so that will be adaptive change. Now, because it is from one organization's one unit to the another unit, then it is not a kind of threat being available to the organization. It is a normal day-to-day methodology which they have to go for. The another thing which is available, that is innovative changes. Now, innovative, it involves the changes that are generally new and unfamiliar. The innovative changes create a kind of uncertainty and fear in the organization. So innovation is appreciated everywhere, and innovation is being required as we have to discuss within the leadership quality as well. A person need to be potentially appraised. We have seen that the person must have innovation as a part of his or her capabilities. Innovation is being appreciated, but when it actually the part related to the organization's practices, it creates difficulty. Why? Because the things which came up as an innovation are not known to an individual earlier. It is being a kind of threat for individuals. It's a kind of fear to individuals that they will be facing a new difficulties, and these difficulties may create problems in the existing comfort zone, may create existing we can say disbalance. Existing comfort can be disbalanced to the innovation to be taken account. So when we look forward for innovative changes, there can be a fear of uncertainty within the organization. Now, another change which is available, that is your radically innovative change. That is, this is the most intimating type of change. This type of change is most resisted in organization. Implementation of radical change is an organization requirement, a long-term strategy. So radical changes which are available now, when we look forward for industry to grow up and organization to grow within the industry, there are certain things which are necessarily to be implemented by the organization. Now, these changes are need to be taken by the organization. If not taken, then in that particular case, the organization may lag behind, may have a future shock kind of situation given by this concept being given by Alvin Toffler. So when we look forward for this, so for such kind of changes to bring in the organization, the individual must make efforts and then bring these changes in the organization related practices. Now, the next which is available, your reactive changes. This is a change brought about by a sudden unplanned event. So when we look forward for certain things unseen, when we look forward for a future is being uncertain, and there may be changes occurring within the organization immediately. There may be certain challenges available in the organization immediately. So for mitigating such kind of concerns which is being raised by immediate, unforeseen dimension, we come across with are reactive changes. Now, planned changes, this is a systematic, deliberate change in the way part of all of an organization functions. And planned change, the focus is on process, people, technology, and one person, a project, team, a department, or entire firm can be involved in the change process. So when the organization realizes that it needs to bring changes overall in its practices, there must have to be implementation in all the dimensions so that a new organization can be evolved, or we can say new development can be reached within the organization. So for that, changes are being planned with a phase wise, with time bound, with different dimensions of changes. So in this particular case, everything being changed and then that is being made constant after the change made into practice. That is being made constant practice within the organization so that individual is taking it as an habit. So these are the types of changes, how the changes need to be processed within the organization, how the change is being managed within the organization. There are certain 4 stages being available with that. So the first stage comes up with the planning. So all these things are respected to all those changes which we may have time to come up with. In case of reactive changes, we might have to react immediately. We don't have chance for plan, but still we, with the time bound, with somewhat of future dimension, we still try to bring these stages in the process of change management. Now, first is the planning. In the planning stage, the organization determines a need for change and creates a change management team and develops a plan for action, a plan of action. Now, when we look forward for planning dimension, so we first need to identify whether there is a need of change, what change is required, and what are the changes we can create. So all these things being planned, who will be the operator in that particular change management, so team being there and the planning gets started. Now implementation and management, once the plan is done, that has to be executed. In this stage, the change plan is executed and the main focus is on implementing these changes, managing and maintaining the change process so that the change is effected smoothly without hiccups. So when we don't want to have some resistance with respect to change, we want to make it a smooth implementation within the organization. The things need to be operated with, coordinated with the other people in the organization. Change management is developing of tracking and monitoring instruments. So when we look forward for this dimension, we can identify the controlling is taking place at this particular place. We are looking forward for how we can have any instrument, any measurement related dimensions to measure what we have planned, how the things are up to the mark. So there comes some of the other dimensions being available, that whether the things are being properly designed, what are the standards we have created for the planning and all these dimensions. The next which is available, that is tracking and monitoring. When we have come up with all these instruments being developed, then these instruments need to be implemented. While the things of implementation is taking place, we'll be checking, we'll be looking forward for how these are being executed, whether it is meeting the standards, whether it is up to the mark or not. So all these are related to change management process which has to be brought within the organization. Now once this is being available, there is a process which is being defined by Lewin with respect to change management. The stages which is available inside it, that is unfreezing, change and refreezing. So with respect to unfreezing, these are made ready for the changes to be brought in the organization. So we first make that scenario through which employees are being introduced about the changes, and then they've been made motivationally, they'll be made ready for these changes to be brought. Now once they are ready, this is the stage of unfreezing the current scenario where the people are with habit of some comfortable zone or some established processes. Now the people being made ready for the changes to be introduced. Now when the things are being available, the change will be coming up with introduction related to the new changes which we actually want to be get introduced. Now once this is being introduced, few people may come up with certain reluctance, few people will get acquainted with that, few people will learn how the things need to be adopted, need to be executed with respect to the changes which are available in the organization. Now with this, we try to make it sure that each and every individual who is a part of organization is ready and well versed with all the changes which we are bringing in the organization. That is done once everyone is known with what are the things they have to perform with these changes to be implemented, and then they are well versed with all the dimensions of their job profile, all the dimensions of their changed working conditions, and then we make a refreeze. Means now that becomes a permanent methodology of performing different activities within the organization, and this is how we bring change changes in the organization and make them permanent in the organization. This approach being given by Kurt Lewin. So this is called a Kurt Lewin model. There are different other models available with respect to change management, whereas Kurt Lewin is the most prevailing model used for change management practices.